Welcome to this episode of the weekly News Roundup. The first news that we have is on Kuwait. The devastating fire that occurred in the Mangaf area of Kuwait sent shockwaves throughout the entire country. The death toll of Indians killed in the massive fire in Kuwait has risen to 46, as authorities said that an electrical short circuit in the room of the guard on the ground floor of the building caused the blaze that killed 50 people. The mortal remains of 31 Indians, including 23 from Kerala, who died in the Kuwait fire tragedy, were received at the Kochi International Airport by the central and state ministers, including Kerala Chief Minister Pinarayi Vijayan, who paid tributes to the deceased. At least 50 others were injured in the fire on June 12th at the 7-story building in Kuwait's Mangaf. Among the Kuwait fire victims from Kerala, an engineer who joined just days ago, another who sent his first salary home the week before. Also among the victims were a 44-year-old with 2 young daughters and a 26-year-old with dreams of building a house of his own. These and many more are the stories of the people who had gone to Kuwait to work, to make things a bit more easier at home, to pay off that loan, to finally build a home for himself, to fund their children's education, to work hard in a foreign country to make a better life for themselves and their families. Their families are still grappling with the enormity of their loss after they were informed of the death of their loved ones. The families are still coming to terms with the reality that their loved ones are not coming home anymore. We bring you this report.
It was only last week that 27-year-old Srihari Pradeep started his first job at the company where his father has been working for a decade. On Wednesday, the mechanical engineer from Kerala was among the 50 people who died when a fire broke out at an apartment building in Kuwait's Mangaf area. The building was where the NBTC group, the company Srihari joined days ago, housed several of his employees. Around 45 of the 49 people who died in the fire were Indians, and at least 23 of them were from Kerala, according to the state government. Like Srihari, 44-year-old Binoy Thomas and 29-year-old Sergeant George, both from Kerala, had also not been in Kuwait for long. Binoy Thomas, who died in the fire, lives behind wife Binita and 2 daughters, the youngest of whom is in class 1, back home in Palayur near Chavakad in Thrissur district. He had been working as a salesman at a shop in Chavakad before going to Kuwait, with dreams of earning enough money to build a house for his family. Binoy Thomas had moved to the country just 5 days ago to work for the NBTC group. Binoy and his family were going through a lot of financial difficulties. Binoy's greatest wish was to have a house of his own. It was for this purpose that he had gone to Kuwait for a job so that he could get the money to build a house of his own. His family has always been living in a rented house. The family currently lives in a temporary constructed shed. He lives behind his wife and 2 daughters. Sergeant George, who had joined the company in April, had sent his first salary home only last week. The father of Sergeant George, who died in the fire, lamented that it was he who had urged Sergeant to go to Kuwait. An M.Tech graduate from Bishop Jerome College in Kollam, he had previously served as an assistant professor at Adur Mount Engineering College for 5 years and briefly worked as a postmaster. Sergeant was not keen on going to Kuwait, his family said. On June 5, he sent me his first salary, said George Pelton, his father. Srihari's father, Pradeep, lived 3 buildings away from where the fire took place, and on Thursday morning, he identified his son at a hospital mortuary. According to a neighbor, Srihari had not suffered burns but died of suffocation caused by smoke. Pradeep has worked for MBTC for around a decade. His wife Deepa is a homemaker. Apart from Srihari, the couple has 2 other sons, Arjun, who works in the hospitality sector, and Anand, who works in retail. Binoy Thomas' neighbor said they don't have a house of their own. Last year, Binoy purchased a small plot of land to build a house. Now they have erected a small shed on that land. He went to Kuwait at the age of 44 just so that he can repay the liability incurred in purchasing the land and to find enough money to start constructing a house. KG Abraham, the managing director of Kuwait-based NBTC Group, he said that his company is taking full responsibility for the fire tragedy that killed 50 people, including 46 Indians in Kuwait. Speaking to reporters in Kochi, Abraham made it clear that his firm was accepting responsibility for the tragedy.
What we can do, this was happened not, we believe, not because of our mistake, but still we will take the responsibility. We cannot say that it is not our responsibility. They were living, working with us. They built the company. They are our family.
He also revealed that the accident was caused by a short circuit at the building, which was owned by NBTC. He said, "We do not believe the accident was caused by any fault on the part of the company. However, we take full responsibility for this tragedy. We are committed to shouldering our responsibility and ensuring that those affected receive the support they need."
My children, they are gone to here. From today evening, they are going to Madras, Chennai, then Karnataka, Uttar Pradesh, Rajasthan, everywhere they will go and meet the parents. Each and every one. We have to convey our condolence to them, then they feel much comfortable. Anyway, you cannot say they will be comfortable because they lost their son or husband.
He also acknowledged the swift intervention of the Kuwaiti government, Indian embassy and central government on the matter, adding that it helped in the timely repatriation of the victims' body to their native places within 48 hours. He also revealed that he would personally meet the families of the victims.
From Kuwait, we move to Gaza. In news coming in, the Israeli government has allowed for a daily pause in the fighting in Gaza to allow for aid trucks to pass through. Israel's humanitarian aid coordinator for Gaza set out the details of the scheduled daily pause in fighting between 8 o'clock and 7 o'clock local time, along a key route running north from the Kerem Shalom crossing point where aid is waiting to be delivered. The announcement almost immediately triggered a furious political assault from far-right government ministers and a rapid defense from Israel's army, insisting that it did not signal an end to the fighting in southern Gaza or any change to the entry of humanitarian aid. The fact that this announcement has proved so explosive highlights the increasingly fraught situation of Israel's Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu, who is caught between his so far unattainable military goals of dismantling Hamas and bringing home the hostages, and the political allies he relies on to stay in power. We bring you this report.
Agencies will still need to coordinate their movements with the Israeli army, and the Gaza director for the World Food Programme, Matt Hollingworth, said the test would be whether that the coordination became smoother and faster as a result. But he also said that coordination was only part of the obstacle agencies faced in delivering aid inside Gaza. Sunday's announcement doesn't resolve the issue of insecurity and criminality, he said, and this is the most dangerous area of the Gaza Strip right now for moving aid. Aid agencies reported over the weekend that the continuing war was fueling acute malnutrition in parts of Gaza. Israel is under pressure from NGOs, allies, and its own high court to get more aid into Gaza. But Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu faces stiff opposition from two far-right cabinet colleagues who say they will bring down his government if he agrees to end the war, and who see aid deliveries as delaying Israel's victory. They reacted furiously to the announcement, with Internal Security Minister Itamar Ben-Gvir describing whoever made this decision as evil and foolish. Finance Minister Bezalel Smotrich said that humanitarian aid helped keep Hamas in power and risked putting the achievements of the war down the drain. But pressure over the costs of war are rising at home too. Israel's parallel conflict with Hezbollah in Lebanon has escalated in recent days, highlighting the broader risk of continuing the war with their Hamas allies. Large crowds turn out to protest in Tel Aviv, calling on Mr. Netanyahu to end the conflict in Gaza and sign a deal to return 120 Israeli hostages home. And the funerals of 11 soldiers killed in Gaza are again pulling into focus questions over how the stated war aims of Mr. Benjamin Netanyahu can be achieved. Mr. Netanyahu has promised total victory against Hamas. He has framed the current operation in Rafah as an assault on the group's last remaining battalions in Gaza, necessary to destroy it, he says. But it's clear that even dismantling Hamas as a structured military organization does not mean an end to conflict entirely. Israeli forces still face guerrilla operations by Hamas fighters in areas they have previously cleared. And there is no sign that the group's key leaders, Yahya Sinwar and Mohammed Deif, have been killed or captured. For Mr. Netanyahu, ending the war is likely to bring a fresh battle for his own political survival. The divisions laid bare today between his army and his allies highlight the tensions between rhetoric and reality in this war, and the tensions Mr. Netanyahu faces in straddling them, caught between the promise of total victory and the prospect of a forever war.
Moving to West Bengal, this week saw the horrendous crash of the Kanchenjunga Express train with a goods train. The Kanchenjunga Express train was travelling from Agartala in Tripura to Sialda station in Kolkata when a goods train hit it from behind near Rangapani station close to New Jalpaiguri on Monday morning. Preliminary findings point to a combination of human error and signal failure as contributing factors. The Railway Board's initial report revealed that the goods train, operating under a defective automatic signalling system, was travelling above speed limits when it crashed into the Kanchenjunga Express. We bring you this report.
India's top railway officials said the driver of the freight train, who was among the dead, disregarded a signal leading to the crash with the Kanchenjunga Express, which had halted near Rangapani station in the district of Darjeeling. There were 1,400 people aboard, a railway spokesman said. But media said an automatic signalling system had not been working from Monday morning, prompting authorities to advise train drivers to proceed slower than usual, in a process known as paper signals. India's opposition leaders criticized the railway safety record of Prime Minister Narendra Modi's government, attributing it to negligence. The incident came a little over a year after about 288 people were killed in one of India's worst railway crashes in the neighboring state of Odisha, caused by a signalling error. State-run Indian Railways, notorious for overcrowding, is the world's fourth largest train network, carrying 13 million people a day, along with nearly 1.5 billion tons of freight in 2022. In remarks to media on Monday, top railway official Jaya Verma Sinha, who chairs India's railway board, called for human error to be reduced, adding that an anti-collision system was being set up nationwide. Jaya Verma Sinha added she blamed the driver of the goods train for the accident. Unfortunately, the driver of the cargo train also perished in the accident. Whatever we can gather from the situation, prima facie, it seems there was a disregard for the signal, she said, pointing to human error. Railway Minister Ashwini Vaishnaw visited the site in the afternoon. Right now, our focus is on restoration. This is the main line. The rescue operation has been completed. This is not the time for politics. I will also meet the injured, Vaishnav told reporters. He said the Commissioner of Railway Safety will conduct an inquiry and submit its report at the earliest. But he faced sharp criticism from the opposition that blamed the railways for the accident and poor maintenance of the world's second largest track network. Disaster relief personnel climbed over the mangled wreckage of 4 coaches strewn across the railway track. cutting through damaged doors and grills to pull people trapped under heaps of metal. Gurminder Singh, commandant of the National Disaster Relief Forces 2nd Battalion, said, "Our rescuers found 3 bodies and rescued 5 injured who were trapped in the bogies. All injured have been rushed to the hospital. As of Monday 7 p.m., all passengers have been shifted to hospital or released after first aid. Now the operation to clear the railway track is being done. The bogie of the goods train is still at the spot. It will also be cleared in an hour," he said. All the reports point to the same question, that as the investigation gets underway into Monday's Kanchenjunga Express accident, the question that's asked after every rail tragedy is back. Why do train accidents happen so frequently in India? Answer: because the railways isn't doing the basics right. Of course, Kavach, the indigenous high-tech rail safety system, must be installed across the rail network, but there are interim measures the railways can take. Reports say the railways need to revamp varying tracks, rickety bridges, and signaling systems to achieve a zero accident record. Early reports suggest that a combination of signal failure and human error caused the accident. However, Indian Railway documents show that the automatic signaling system between stations before New Jalpaiguri, some 30 km from the crash site, had failed. While the rules for passage in such situation limit train speeds to within 10 km per hour in the event of rain, which was the case on Monday, the freight train driver was said to have been in breach of this. The scale of the tragedy could have been far worse had the 2 parcel vans and the guard's compartment not withstood much of the collision's impact. The accident came roughly a year after a horrific 3-train crash in Balasore district of Odisha, where the Chennai-bound Coromandel Express rammed into a goods train around 6:56 p.m. one Friday evening. The impact of the collision flinging several compartments into the adjacent track, where the Howrah-bound Yeswantpur Express slammed into them 4 minutes later. At least 296 people died and 1,100 people injured in what was the worst railway accident in the country since 1995. Partial services resumed on the affected tracks on Tuesday, with some trains diverted and others running slower than usual, railway officials said.
The 50th G7 summit was held from the 13th to the 15th of June at Borgo Egnazia in the city of Fessano in Apulia, Italy. All G7 member states participated in the summit, including the representatives of the European Union. The summit focused on global conflicts and the spread of artificial intelligence. Perennial issues such as climate change and China were also discussed. On the first day of the summit, the attendees promised tens of billions of dollars in aid for Ukraine. Pope Francis, a special invitee to this year's G7 summit, became the first pontiff to address a G7 summit, raising alarms about artificial intelligence. Pope Francis challenged the leaders of the world's wealthy democracies to keep human dignity foremost in developing and using artificial intelligence, warning that such powerful technology risks turning human relations themselves into mere algorithms. Invited by host Italy to address a special session at their annual summit on the perils and promises of AI, Pope Francis brought his moral authority to bear on the Group of Seven. In doing so, he became the first pope to attend the G7, offering an ethical take on an issue that is increasingly on the agenda of international summits, government policy, and corporate boards alike. He urged politicians to take the lead in making sure AI remains centered around humans, so that decisions about when to use weapons or even less lethal tools always remain with humans and not machines. On the sidelines of the G7 summit, Pope Francis also had a meeting with Prime Minister Narendra Modi, a special invitee to this year's G7 summit. The very affectionate meeting between the two spoke volumes of their relationship. The Prime Minister tweeted on his official X handle, "Met Pope Francis on the sidelines of the G7 summit. I admire his commitment to serve people and make our planet better." Also invited him to visit India. Many hope that the meeting between the two leaders will help pave the way for an early visit of the Pope to India. Christians have been waiting for the Holy Father's visit to India. We bring you this report.
Pope Francis is the first pope in the church's history to attend the G7 summit. Catholic bishops in India expressed immense joy and satisfaction after Prime Minister Narendra Modi announced he had invited Pope Francis to visit the country for the second time. Modi met the Pope on the sidelines of the G7 summit held between June 13 to 15 in Apulia, Italy. Met Pope Francis on the sidelines of the G7 summit. I admire his commitment to serve people and make our planet better. Also invited him to visit India, Modi said in a post on X, formerly Twitter, on June 14th. Narendra Modi also shared photos of him embracing the wheelchair-bound Pope and holding his hand while exchanging pleasantries. In October 2021, Mr. Modi visited the Pope in the Vatican and invited him to India. The Catholic Bishops' Conference of India (CBCI) issued a statement on June 14th expressing immense joy and satisfaction at the historic meeting between Modi and the Pope. This momentous occasion marks a significant chapter in the relationship between the world's largest democracy and the global spiritual leadership of the Catholic Church, it said. The bishops expressed hope that their meeting was meaningful and constructive, paving the way for enhanced understanding and cooperation. The statement said the bishops were delighted that Modi had invited Pope Francis to India and said that it would enhance dialogue and mutual respect. The Catholic Church in India eagerly anticipates the visit of Pope Francis and looks forward to extending a warm and heartfelt welcome, the statement said.
Thanks so much for watching. Until we meet next time, stay blessed.